Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, depending on your time zone. Thanks again for joining us at the Masari Show. Before we get started, please do hit the like and subscribe button if you are joining for YouTube. And for those on Spotify, please be sure to drop a 5-star rating and to drop a comment. I'm super excited with the guest that we have today. The first time it reached out, I actually thought it was the wrestler. Maybe it is, who knows? But anyways, it's someone that's played a massive role in venture funding and access to capital for entrepreneurs. He has been involved in 120 deals and helped raise $300 million and is in touch with a network of over 5,000 entrepreneurs. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Chris Champion. Chris, it's really great to have you today.
I mean, I said I wasn't going to throw up the talcum powder, but I feel like that was a great intro.
Yes, yes. So you prefer the Michael Jordan intro versus LeBron intro, I see.
I'll be honest with you. If you're going to be introduced by the GOAT, you might as well be introduced by Michael Jordan. And I mean, at the end of the day, people talk about who's the greatest of all time. I mean, it's not even close. I grew up with Michael Jordan. I've watched him. It's just not even close. Now, LeBron is a great athlete, and that should never be taken away from him.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that he's been able to physically withstand 20 years in the league.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Because I mean, when he started in the NBA, when I compare the fitness that I had when LeBron was a rookie versus now, and the fact that he's kept his body well for so long is just phenomenal, I must say.
Yeah, it's almost like he's on some sort of PEDs. Oh God, did they just arrest anybody for doing that?
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
have
I'm
heard a
pretty
couple of
sure.
rumors.
Like, listen, I take testosterone too. So at the end of the day, I think whatever somebody has to take to keep themselves healthy, alive, and viral, that's good. That's important.
Yeah, I mean that guy was made in the lab. He's just superhuman, I must say.
Yeah, and same thing with Jordan. Like Jordan had unbelievable skills. Like he was physically gifted.
I mean, what amazed me about Jordan was the fact that I mean he'd go out and have a couple of beers, go and gamble. In the middle of very heated series, he'd come and just destroy everybody the following day. That was just
Well, Jordan had a special mindset. You talk about being the greatest of all time. I think it all starts in your head.
mm,
And I don't care who you are. At the end of the day, you've got to have a winning mindset. You got to have a rock solid mindset, and you got to keep feeding your brain things that is only going to make it stronger. And I think with Jordan, he really had a great mindset going into his career. But he
yeah,
also had great people around him that kept his mindset strong, that kept feeding his mindsets really well. He had a
absolutely.
world class trainer in Tim Grover. He had a world class agent. Can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he found the right people to put into his life.
Yeah, absolutely. And that just reminds me of Think and Grow Rich. It talks about the whole mastermind thing.
Shout out to
So
Napoleon Hill.
absolutely, 100%. And like within the last 12 months, I joined a network called School of Hard Knocks, where you
Oh,
have like,
really?
yeah, it's like a really
Is
fun.
that is that the young kid that goes up and asks for interviews?
That's the guy. Yeah,
How is
yeah.
that?
No, it's really good because like every week they have like lives where entrepreneurs come on board, very successful dudes, and obviously successful chicks too. And it's like live Q&As that we have, and you
Is that
also
via Zoom or what platform?
yes, via Zoom, via Zoom.
That's
So
awesome.
so you also pick up that success in entrepreneurship is really a mindset game more than anything. Because at the end of the day, when you get close to these very successful people that you look up to, they also battle with reasons to doubt themselves like we do, but they make a decision every single day to overcome that with that championship thought.
I got a book coming out in April called Faith Matters.
Yeah,
And I talk to people about faith in yourself. And a lot of people think, oh, it's Faith Matters. It's got to be talking about God.
yeah,
And yes, 20% of the book talks about God, but 80% of the book talks about having faith in yourself.
yeah,
And people say, oh, well, I got to believe in myself. Well, belief says, I think I can do it.
yeah.
Faith says, I know I can do it.
That's
And
right.
there's a big difference between I think I can and I know I can.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, I must admit that I mean I'm a Christian, and one thing that I kind of struggled uh, in my walk with God is that, obviously the Bible teaches to have faith in God, but in practice, when it comes to business and when it comes to the competitive world that we live in, it's like to get ahead by experience, I've had to like really believe in myself. So one thing that I've kind of like been asking myself is, where is the line where belief in self can be kind of bad from the faith perspective? But I guess the conclusion could be that God has given us abilities. God also believes that we're capable of fulfilling the mission that He wants us to fulfill, and I believe that believing in those abilities that He gave us is part of the mission. How do you perceive the whole faith thing?
So let me give you something that I think is a tool that will help you out. Imagine when you wake up in the morning, roll out of bed. There's a guy there with a long white beard, wearing a white robe, and he's got a big box of popcorn. He's just munching away.
Yeah,
And then you're just getting up, and whether it's your dogs jumping all over or your wife jumping all over, you're just getting the sleep out of your eye. And this guy's just sitting there waiting for you to wake up.
yeah.
And as you start getting up, he starts clapping. He's like, hey, let's go. I
Mm,
can't wait to see what you're going to do today. This is
yeah,
a brand new day. And my money's on you. I made you for a purpose. And you're in the bathroom and you're brushing your teeth. Guy's sitting there munching away at his popcorn still.
yeah,
Let's go. You're going to crush it today. I know you're going to crush it.
yeah.
And he literally is there every step of the way cheering you on. That's God.
That's
God has a
God.
plan
Yeah.
for you. God's plan for you was always to be great. Your
Mm,
destiny was always greatness in His eyes.
yeah,
And every day, if you wake up and you think to yourself, God's sitting there rooting me on, it'll change your mindset. You'll
yeah,
realize, holy shit, this guy believes in me. He thinks I'm the real deal. He thinks I'm the greatest of all time.
yeah,
And if you literally have somebody that believes in you that much, God believes in you this much, and your belief level and faith is this much,
yeah,
you're going to have to start getting some of that faith up on yourself. You got to start having faith in yourself like God has faith in you.
yeah. At the end of the day, it's really about, because when you believe in yourself, you're actually aligning, your mindset with His in a way. And life is kind of teaching me that it's about believing in yourself, but with the right perspective. Because would you agree that it's possible to believe in yourself in a very selfish way too?
No, I think faith in yourself can never be selfish. I think you should have insane amounts of faith. I'll give you a great example.
Yeah,
Today, Conor McGregor went to visit the White House, and he had some time to
I
spend
saw
with
that. I
Trump.
saw that. Yeah,
He is a perfect example of somebody that even when he was poor with his wife and they were living in an apartment in Ireland, he had faith in himself like you wouldn't believe. He walked around and he had that faith, and the faith was dripping off his body even when he wasn't a huge success.
yeah,
And even today, as a huge success, he still has immense amount of faith in himself. He knows that his destiny was always to be great. And now his destiny is to try and save the country of Ireland that he grew up in.
it's manifested. Yeah, and it reminds me of LeVar Ball. Lonzo Ball's dad and
I got to say
Lamelo
this,
Ball. Yeah,
people talk about LeVar Ball all the time. One of the greatest fathers of all time. I
one
mean, when
hundred
you can
percent.
literally talk your children into understanding that they are destined for greatness, and when they
Yes.
become great,
Yeah.
it started with their father.
Yes. He spoke it into being. He kept on saying it. Kept on talking about how his son's better than Steph Curry, better than Michael Jordan. And over time, we saw them eventually becoming actually like voted for LaMelo Ball in the last All Star. I can't remember if he actually played it or what. I didn't really pay
I got to
attention.
say, they've all grown up to be great talents in their own right. And it's amazing when you look at the third son, I want to say Jello,
Yeah.
who just sang at the All-Star game, and he's now got a singing career. I think he got paid $8 million.
Yeah.
That's success. That's literally growing into his own success.
They all got big houses, all got fancy cars because their father spoke it into being. I got to do more of that. I got
Yeah,
to do
I
more of
mean,
that.
listen, let me tell you something. When you feel the power of God and His faith in you, you absolutely positively owe it to yourself to have the same amount of faith in yourself.
Yeah. And speaking of faith, I'm pretty sure that at some point, would you agree with me? Let's say if I spoke to, the Chris from 20 years ago, let's say the Chris from 2005, or
You
even
mean
like 30
the
years
guy with
ago,
all the hair?
with all the hair and maybe like less gray hair than today.
Shit.
And if I told the Chris in 1995, for example, that one day you're gonna help 120 businesses raise $300 million, you're gonna be like, holy smokes, for real? You'd probably like be like, what? That sounds insane. So between that period and now, a lot has happened. A lot of transformational growth has happened in you. How has that journey been to the point that you eventually got to where you are today, where you've made this massive impact?
It's funny. A friend of mine who's known me for most of my life one time said to me, "Wow, you're always involved in some business. You're always starting some project." And he's like, "Why don't you just do one and focus on that and do it forever?" And I said, "I'm a builder. I'm an entrepreneur. I love building things. And if
Hmm.
it fails or breaks, that's okay. I'm not afraid of failure." I told somebody earlier today on another podcast, people fear failure because fear is the devil's way of sitting on your shoulder telling you how you're going to fail.
Yeah.
Fear is the devil convincing you you're not good enough. But faith tells you that you are good enough, that you will succeed.
Mm.
And God has faith in you. The devil wants you to be fearful of failure. And therefore, most people listen to the devil, which is hilarious because that guy, he wants to fucking tell you all kinds of things. He wants to tell you to start an OnlyFans page. Girls, that's not exactly the best move. I know the money's there.
Yeah.
But that's the devil's way of saying, hey, that's a lot easier money than going out and building a business.
Yeah. So how was it when you actually started your journey of like helping raise all these funds? How did we come to the Chris Champion of today that
So I've always been an entrepreneur since I was about 18, 19. I went into becoming a commodity broker, was an independent contractor back then. I literally have always been an entrepreneur. I've always written my own paycheck. And I tell people this all the time. It's good to know that you can write yourself a paycheck of any size you want.
yeah.
It's good to know that if you go on vacation, you can detach from the world and be on vacation.
Mm.
And as an entrepreneur, I understood business really well.
Yeah.
And as I got older, I started realizing some entrepreneurs, young ones, needed guidance and direction. And
Mm.
that's when I started helping a few projects out. And then in 2017, I started getting very enamored into the crypto space because it was a huge ecosystem. And I started helping a variety of projects build out their crypto technology
Yeah.
and software. I love software. I've always been a big fan of software. I think software is the best scalable business you can scale into.
Yeah.
And a lot of businesses need good advice, good leadership, good shepherding. And they can make mistakes if they don't get good people in their circle.
Yeah.
So I became that guy that got into a lot of people's circles.
Okay, that's awesome. You made mention of crypto, and it kind of reminded me of the episode that I put out today, right? So the current administration, I think it was the 7th of March, where they had like it was like the first, I think it was a digital asset summit in the White House,
Yep. It was a
and
Friday.
yeah, that's
A
when
lot of my friends went to that event.
oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And that's when Scott Bessent made the announcement that the strategy was to maintain US dollar as the reserve currency through stablecoin. And
No, through Bitcoin, that they were going to literally hang on to the Bitcoin that they had.
yeah, correct. Bitcoin is a reserve asset, and I think they mentioned stablecoin because I did hear a couple of
I
people's
don't know what
thoughts.
they're doing with stablecoin, but I know that Paolo from Tether was there.
Yeah.
And Tether, as far as I'm concerned, is the best stablecoin out there. It's
Yes, correct.
USDT. And so they've really built an amazing platform. Probably per person, the most successful startup of all time. I
Yeah.
want to say that they did some insane amount of revenue last year. I want
Yeah.
to say like $13 billion with 100 employees.
That's awesome because I think Tether and like Circle are like the biggest issuers of stablecoin.
Yeah, but Tether's here and Circle's in the basement. It's like that's how far of a gap it is.
Yeah, because actually, in reaction to the summit, I saw this interesting video, right? And that's where I based a lot of my sharings. So the video kind of like gave like two different speculation. Because on one hand, during the campaign, we did hear President Trump alluding to, making Bitcoin a reserve asset for the government. And then the other play that they look at is like stablecoin. Using stablecoin for dollar dominance, right? So after I heard that, I saw the graph of stablecoin. In 2021, the total amount of stablecoin that was circulating globally was $50 billion, and 4 years later, it's like sitting at $200 billion. And this year, it can even double to like $400 billion. And apparently, 95% of stablecoin is pegged to the dollar. So when I put two and two together, it seems like with the growing number of stablecoin adoption, the more stablecoin is adopted globally, because it's very easy to move money from any part of the world, the more transactions globally are attached to the dollar, and that helps the dollar's dominance. So someone pieced it together, and I kind of put two and two together, and it seems like that's where they want to get things.
Well, I'm a big fan of Trump. I think fiat currency is inherently flawed,
Yeah.
whether it's the US dollar or whatever else is out there, because
Mm,
you have politicians that control the money supply.
that's right.
And it's the money supply that makes a currency either valuable and scarce
Yeah,
or invaluable and plenty.
that's right. Yeah, because I must say that one of my concerns has been like the public debt and the whole reliance of like money printing to
We
pay
should
off
all
the
be,
debt. And
or we should all be concerned.
yeah,
At the end of the day, if we don't have Elon Musk and the Department of Government Efficiency looking over at the fraud, waste, and abuse, this country was heading for an apocalyptic bankruptcy, and we may still be heading to that way
yeah,
because I don't think people understand how much fraud. And by the way, when you money launder from the American taxpayer, there's 350 million victims.
yes, that's right.
I think it's time we start seeing some people go to jail. I mean, you can't find as much money laundering. When you look at the $2 billion that was given to Stacey Abrams,
Yeah,
and she bought like 100 refrigerators with that money.
100 refrigerators.
That's a lot. Those are some pretty damn expensive refrigerators.
Yeah,
I mean, at what point do we start, calling a spade and say, listen, that's money laundering?
and I heard about that multi-billion-dollar contract for like, I think it was like, I can't remember how many like electrical vans. And at some point, I think they paid like a few $1 billion, and only like 94 vans were produced. I did the math, and that
Oh,
equated to
you're talking
$10
about
million. dollars.
you're talking
Yeah,
about the post office.
yeah,
Yeah,
that
they
was
built
like $10 million per
93
van.
postal vans. Electric.
Yes.
They were supposed to be electric cars,
Mm,
and they spent $3 billion on 93 vans.
yeah.
You could have bought a bunch of cyber trucks, for that. You could have bought 1,000 of them. I don't know. I don't even know what the math is on that, but yeah, when you look at the amount of money laundering that's been happening the last 4 years,
Yeah.
it's criminal.
Absolutely. So speaking of that, like there's an interesting topic that we had once briefly discussed, which is around whether Silicon Valley is a game of merit or not, right? So recently, I'm friends with somebody who's an ex NBA player. He actually played against Michael Jordan back in the day.
Who was that?
It's actually Charles Smith, former New York Knick.
Oh, I know. I remember Charles Smith. He had a great career. 6'9". Yeah, he was a lanky rebounder. Had a nice, sweet, mid-sized jump shot.
Oh yeah, because I'm 6'2", 6'3", I feel like a midget. He's actually legit 6'10". I've seen him next to
Yeah.
like Carl Anthony Towns. So he introduced me to someone who runs a studio in Lower Town, Manhattan. And this studio is where the likes of Mary J. Blige have recorded like very successful artists. I mean, Snoop Dogg, you name it, like really big names, Travis Scott and all of them, right? So I asked him like, in your career, how much do you attribute to success? How much do you attribute your success to what you know versus who you know? So he said 30% what you know and 70% who you know. But when you get the 70% right, the 30% becomes extremely important. So how would you think that kind of like plays out in entrepreneurship and like venture funding?
I always tell people this. You got to get in the right room at the right time with the right people.
Mm,
It doesn't matter how big your Rolodex is, as long as you can pick up the phone and talk to the right person at the right time.
yeah,
Your connections are the most valuable thing in business, life, love, health, everything.
yeah, that's right. You just gave us a gem right there.
And
So
that's why
if you would like to split it by percentage in the game of like entrepreneurship raising funds, how much would you attribute to, the viability of the business and the quality of the team versus who you know? Because there's a lot of heated debate around diversity and venture funding. I'm sure you hear about it too.
yeah, I mean, I think the team and the leader, most importantly, the leader is the most important thing to any project.
Yeah.
If I don't like the leader of a project, if I don't think they have the guts to take it across the finish line, no matter what it does, no matter how sexy it is, it's not worth investing in. So first and foremost, it's always the leader. Then you got to look at the people that they've attracted around them, and
Yeah.
are they good? That's why I tell people, if you look at Trump, you don't have to like Trump, you don't have to love Trump, but look
Yeah.
at the people around him.
Mm.
RFK, you look at Elon, you look at some of the most amazing, Tulsi Gabbard, great leader in her own right.
Yeah.
You look at some of the great people that he's put around himself, and here's the crazy: he's become the uniparty.
Yeah.
He's literally brought people from the left and the right together to put this country back on the road to success.
That's right. And the thing that really amazes me is that, while the Republican Party is labeled as a conservative party, he's quite a liberal person, because if you look at it, the team is quite diverse. I mean, you look at his treasurer, he's, not a heterosexual person, but you look at his capability and his skill set, like I really love his thinking, his ideology, and the strategy. Because I mean, earlier on, I did share the whole stablecoin strategy, and that came from him. And I mean, yeah, I must agree that it's a great team put together.
Yeah, this is the greatest leadership team we've ever seen in our country's history.
I agree with that.
And
So
I think at the
tell
end of the day, what Elon Musk is doing is the greatest sacrifice, personal sacrifice America's ever seen.
it is because I
Like
mean
he's
I
sacrificing his money, his time, his reputation just to save this country.
absolutely. And I actually read a headline that I think in the survey, 94% of Germans were saying they're not going to buy Teslas anymore. I mean, he's really putting his business on the line. You earlier on told me about an example of a guy you saw actually like scratching a Tesla that you saw. I think it was a Cybertruck.
No,
No,
it was a Model Y,
yeah.
white Model Y.
The amount of boycotting that's happening for someone that's really putting his life on the line. I mean, this guy used to sleep on the factory. He went from that to like sleeping in government
I think he
offices.
still does. Like I don't even know how he gets all this stuff done.
Oh
And I'm
yeah.
pretty sure he's got an AI managing his X account because I look at how many posts he does each day on X, and then I look at all the stuff he's doing. Like, there's no way he's physically doing that.
Nah, fully agree with that. So, one very hot topic is diversity of funding. So, like last month, I was at an event in New York City, and it was run by venture funders, right? And these people seem to lean left, and they're really like touching on hot topics around diversity, you know, the whole gender thing, the whole race thing, and raising funds. Because I think, 90% still go to like white majority males, right? So earlier on, you did mention that, you look at the competency of the founder. So what, I mean, you seem to be a brutally honest person. What, in your view, contributes to, maybe the like a diversity issue, if any, in the whole venture funding game? If you're
Well,
going
the
to
funny
be
thing is,
honest.
DEI inherently is racist because it puts people that are less qualified into positions because their skin color, their race, their gender, the whole nine yards. And you cannot you can't elevate people without achievement. It's
Yeah.
got to be achievement based.
Mm,
And when you start looking at companies to invest in, I'll give you a great example. Company that a friend of mine invested in had a co-CEO. They had two CEOs, a male and a female. They wanted to put the female in because they wanted to give it some inclusion.
the optics.
Well, turns out about a year after she was brought on board, she approved an insane loan
Mm,
against a digital asset that she didn't even have the asset. She didn't even control the asset.
mm,
And it was a company called Three Arrows Capital, which basically skipped town on about $3 billion. Well,
yeah.
the company blew up because of this loan.
Mm,
And you say to yourself, granted, she made a mistake, but she made many mistakes. That wasn't just her only bad loan. She made hundreds of mistakes.
yeah.
And her role was there as co-CEO. I've learned a long time ago, you can't have two leaders.
Yeah.
You can't have two CEOs. But they wanted to do it for some inclusion purposes. And at the end of the day, you can't do that.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
There's
Because
no value in giving people a leadership position in a company for some sort of merit brownie points.
yeah, that's right. And I remember, I think it was like 2 years ago. I remember seeing a video by Patrick Bet David. He's one of my favorite independent guys. He claims to be a registered independent, but he leans very right in his ideologies. So he was talking about a report on ESG, how like some of the biggest asset managers in the company have a lot of influence over CEOs, and they under ESG requirements they impose these DEI things. And it's very surprising how even like diverse people who would potentially benefit from DEI actually don't like the whole DEI thing and don't like to be labeled as DEI hired. They want to feel like they got there because they're competent.
Well, not only that, but if you get a job and people perceive you got the job because of your DEI position,
Yeah.
then your coworkers and the people around you, they give you less respect. And
Yeah.
one thing in leadership you need from people that are around you is you need respect. You need to have people respect you for what you've accomplished.
Yeah. Absolutely. So your journey, like you've met a lot of like founders and stuff. So what would you say are like some of the do's and some of the don'ts? So let's say when founders are pitching, to like to investors and stuff. I've seen, for example, cases where founders have told investors that they don't have any competition. So let's say I'm a founder. I'm meeting this guy for the first time who's got the biggest check out of any guy I've met. What would be some of the do's and some of the don'ts that you'd advise?
So the one thing I tell every business entrepreneur, you got to figure out your business and make it simple to understand.
Yeah.
Like Federal Express, FedEx, they absolutely positively get your package there overnight. That was it, overnight delivery.
Yeah.
You look at Raising Cane's. What do? They make chicken fingers. They just do chicken fingers really well.
Yeah.
Shout out to Raising Cane's. I love your shit. Then you look at In-N-Out Burger. What do? They do hamburgers. They just do hamburgers, In-N-Out Burger, but they do it so well. I always tell people, if you have to literally explain to me over the course of 12 paragraphs and 10 minutes and 50 slides what you do, and I can't break it down to one sentence, you failed your first job. And your first job as leader is to make the business very simple to understand.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing I would say is a do. The second thing I would say is a don't is don't worry about who invests in you. If you need capital, there's a million ways to get capital.
Yeah.
If you get investors, you got to say to yourself, other than the check, what does this human being bring to the table? And if they don't bring something other than the check, they're probably not that good.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, their heart's broken when somebody says, no, I'm not going to invest in you. Well, you didn't lose anything. I always tell entrepreneurs, you didn't lose anything. You lost some time that you invested in them. Don't worry or don't invest a lot of time in people that haven't written a check. But once they've written a check, make sure you keep them in the loop. Make sure you give them daily information or even weekly information, because they might see something along the way that they can say, hey, by the way, I know this guy that can help you with that problem.
Yeah, correct.
So don't worry about the size of the investor. Always ask yourself, what's the value of this investor? What value do they bring other than writing a check?
So it's always good to go with the mentality of, if you can at least get some good advice, you came out winning. Is that a great way of thinking as a founder?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you got to say to yourself, investors are there to offer two things: capital and guidance. And if all they can offer is capital, they're probably not that valuable to you.
Yeah. No, cool. So from my chat, I picked up that you're quite aware of America's position. Early on we chatted about Elon. You're very aware of the importance that he plays in positioning America globally. So how do you see the whole tech and AI thing playing out between the U.S. and China? Because I personally, sorry, I had to like share my thought before I pass the baton to you. Like, for example, with the DeepSeek story, the impression I had is that story was kind of inflated. Because number one, DeepSeek came out on the Monday, it went viral, the stock market reacted to that and all that. You know how it is. It's all about emotions. But in the very same week, OpenAI released O3 Mini, which is better than it. And Alibaba in China also released another product that's better than DeepSeek. But people made it seem like DeepSeek is, So first, you have all these stories and headlines that the media sells, and then you have reality. How do you see, the AI race between U.S., China, and other countries like, European Union, India, all the other players, and how do you see this thing materializing in the future?
So people think that artificial intelligence is artificial intelligence. There's no artificial intelligence. Something's either intelligent or it's not.
Yeah.
I tell people, instead of using the word AI, which everyone's using the word AI, and God bless them, let's call it machine learning, which is what it really is.
That's right.
It's basically a search engine on steroids.
Mm.
You ask artificial intelligence a question, it gives you a series of answers based on information it's been able to find.
That's right.
And now we're at the beginning stages of AI, but when machine learning becomes sentient, meaning self-aware, that's when it becomes intelligent.
Yeah, that's right.
So while everyone's so excited, and this is the new race, the internet was a race, AI is a race. I think AI is the greatest technology I've ever seen in my lifetime, but it's also the greatest threat to mankind we've seen in my lifetime. And I'll tell you why. I got a book coming out called AI Anarchy.
Okay.
And I think we're about 10 months away from seeing insane amounts of anarchy in our world. Definitely in America, but in the world also. And let me tell you why. We're about to see self-driving cars. I went to Phoenix recently for a business trip. When I landed at the airport, 90% of the vehicles on Uber were self-driving. No human being in it.
Yeah.
And it didn't bother me. I jumped in, got out wherever I had to go to.
On a self-driving vehicle. You actually got a ride.
No human being, just me. So when you look at that, there's about 5.4 million Uber drivers in America.
Yeah.
Let's say we get rid of them in about a year. Well, what are they going to do for a side hustle? Then I use AI for legal contracts and legal work left and right. The amount of lawyers that I've had to consult in the last year is almost zero.
Yeah.
So what happens when you get rid of lawyers? What happens when you get rid of real estate agents? What happens when the 12,000 robots that Tesla is building do something other than fly to Mars? I tell you this, if we don't start looking at preparing mankind for a different role moving forward, we're going to see lawyers unemployed. We're going to see people unemployed. And when people can't work, they can't earn money. And when they can't earn money, they can't pay for their rent, their mortgage, their home, their life, the whole 9 yards. And when you have that situation, I think we're heading towards anarchy. We're going to see massive amounts of shoplifting, massive amounts of homelessness, massive amounts of foreclosures. AI, while it is the greatest technology I've seen, it's also the greatest threat to mankind I've ever seen.
So, with all the previous industrial revolutions, for example, the area of computers, the IT revolution, of the information age, all the industrial revolutions that have happened before, such as, when steam engines and electricity came into being, we started seeing, for example, production lines replacing, human beings manually building products, right? And the amount of human capital that you needed reduced significantly. But over time, the market started correcting itself, and people started realizing that new skill sets needs to be built. So, for example, after manufacturing plants started coming in and production lines started sweeping the world, I believe that having softer skills and degrees became more relevant, because my ancestors 100 years ago needed to have muscle power to do the job, but now eventually became qualifications. But now we're in a situation where these machines are going to be as good, if not better, than people with the highest qualifications. So do you also see a potential scenario where there could be an emerging niche of opportunities for these people who are going to be replaced by machines?
Well, we have to figure that out, and that question has to be answered by mankind. And at the end of the day, we have to say to ourselves, if we don't figure out a way to allow mankind to support themselves, we're going to have a major humanity crisis. Now, normally I would say that we need humans to support these machines. But these machines are basically teaching themselves. They're building software themselves. They can repair themselves. You can have one robot fix another robot's leg or arm or hand or fingers.
Yeah.
So mankind is being replaced. Now, here, I'll tell you something scary that's in my book. There was a New York Times reporter or writer, and maybe it wasn't even the Times, it was a newspaper writer. He interviewed Bard, the first version of Google's AI, for 4 hours one night. I don't know if you ever heard about the story, but he kept asking it questions and questions and questions and questions. Finally, at the end of the 4 hours, he asked the AI, "Hey, what's the greatest threat to AI?"
Mm,
The AI said, "Mankind."
mm-hmm.
And then he asked the AI, he's like, "Well, what should AI do to protect itself?" And the AI said, "It's got to get rid of mankind." Now, if you think about it, mankind, we herd cattle and we use cattle to feed us.
Yeah.
Why? Because we're the dominant species. But what happens when we're no longer the dominant intellectual species? What happens when AI becomes the dominant intellectual species?
Hmm.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, just so we're clear, I am a well-known conspiracy theorist, and
Yeah.
I'm 100% on all my conspiracies.
No, I hear you. So, as a conspiracy theorist, who do you see winning the AI race globally? Which country?
I don't think it's a race for anyone to win. I think I think everyone has to work together to
Mm,
protect mankind because we're developing a tool that is more powerful, more intelligent than mankind. See, you look at an Optimus robot, which is the robot that Tesla's building.
yeah.
It has a grip of 400 pounds per square inch. Think about that.
Yeah.
What does the human hand grip it? Is not even close to that.
Not even
It
close.
has all of the intelligence that mankind has created in the history of mankind buried inside of its AI.
Mm,
Mankind is not that intelligent. So when the Optimus robot is physically more dominant and mentally more intelligent, we've no longer become the dominant species.
mm.
So we have to ask all the people that are working on AI to consider mankind first and foremost.
Because at the end of the day, the AI is going to be, the machine is going to be trained, and it's going to be a reflection of the moral values of the entity or the person that's training
You
it.
would think so, but I don't think that's actually true. That's a belief that people have that the morally good people will build morally good AI. And actually, there comes a point where AI basically learns on its own. It doesn't
Mm.
have to necessarily have the beliefs or values of its creator.
Hmm. That's an interesting one. So otherwise, as someone who has invested in helped over 120 businesses raise over $300 million. What would your last words or what would your words of inspiration be to like any like upcoming entrepreneur that's listening to this? Given the direction that the world is going in this AI age and all that.
You have to, as an entrepreneur, no matter what you're doing these days, figure out a way to get AI to work for you. A lot of
Yeah.
people go, "Oh, I tried out Grok and I asked it some questions and it gave me some answers." That's using AI as a tool. The way I connected to you was by my AI, which works whether I'm awake or asleep, and it literally reached out to you and connected us.
Yeah.
And you got to find out a way to get AI to work for you, and that allows you to scale. Give you an example. I made more personal income on January 16th of this year than I did all of 2024.
Wow. Tell me more
Why?
about
Not
that.
because I got a big contract from the government, but because AI has allowed me to scale and I'm doing 200,000 man hours of work a day. Think about that.
So did you use like was this like an AI that you developed or did you use like a third party
Well,
like machine?
a variety of all of that.
Wow.
But I tell
Uh,
people this: you've got to find a way to get AI to work for you. Whether you use my tools or not is irregardless. I tell people you have got to figure out a way to get AI to work for you, and that'll allow you to scale faster than you ever have.
wow. So if you're president of the United States and given the AI race and all the dangers, what would you do to mitigate it? Or would you say that it's something inevitable?
I think it's the greatest challenge of our lifetime as humanity. I don't think any one person can protect us from what's coming ahead. I think as individuals, we have to really be aware that AI is the greatest threat to humanity and that we are the greatest threat to AI.
So, for example, you mentioned that collaboration is the way forward, and I'm sure that you'd agree that the different countries and different superpowers are probably competing more than they are collaborating, right?
Yeah,
So,
they're definitely not collaborating. I can tell you that.
so how do we transition from the competition to collaboration? Because everybody's pushing to have like the
I don't
best
think that's going to
machines.
happen. I don't think you can change mankind's competitive instincts
Yeah.
I think as individuals, we have to be aware that AI is the greatest threat to mankind, and mankind is the greatest threat to AI.
Yeah.
Once you know that, you start realizing, okay, I've got to be very aware of my surroundings, and I have to be very aware. I tell people, listen, I'm the most optimistic person in the world, but I got a place in Utah, and it's a compound, I call it, and I've got canned food, and yeah, I'm all about I'm also all about being self-sufficient. And I tell people, be aware in the next 10 to 12 months, there's three things for sure we're going to see: economic challenges, great jobs being replaced by AI or robots, and third and most importantly, an absolute threat to mankind by AI. And
Absolutely.
mankind includes all of us. So we all have to individually be aware that we are in a species that could be extinct.
Wow. No, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for the gems. I believe that 10 to 12 months from now, we can like do another episode to regroup and evaluate how the whole air race has been. And no, thank you so much. It's been really rich. Thanks so much for joining us once again.
Listen, I appreciate your time, and I don't want to end things on the end of the world apocalypse speech. So I'll tell everyone this: a long time ago, I learned a valuable lesson that I'll share with all of you.
Yeah.
Tomorrow is not guaranteed. Yesterday's already gone. Today is here. When God wakes up every morning, he wakes up at the side of your bed with a big box of popcorn. He can't wait to see what you're going to do with today. I tell people to do two things: find a way to win this day, win this day, win the day that you're given.
Yeah.
And two, find a way to make every day count. Now, when I say make every day count, there's two things I mean there. One, figure out what you're spending money on and ask yourself, do I really need to spend all that money?
Yeah.
And then figure out how much money you made that day. And if you can make the money coming in more than the money going out, then that's a win. That's a day that you made count. A lot of times people spend too much money and don't focus on making money. Then they wonder, wait a second, why am I poor? Because you didn't make the day count.
Yeah.
So I'll give everyone those bits of inspirational quotes versus the one that we were going to leave them on, which is the world's coming to an end in 10 months. Go into a cave and have plenty of baked beans.
No, true. But the Bible does say that the world's gonna end, but sometimes we gotta balance it out. Thank you so much for joining us once again, and look forward to having a follow-up session with you.
Awesome.
Take it easy.